Welcome to Solink in the Cloud, where we are talking to industry leaders about topics that matter. I'm Kathy Langley, Senior Leader of Asset Protection with Solink. Solink's mission is to protect people, places, and profits, which is why we're bringing together thought leaders within the loss prevention, asset protection, and retail security industries to share their expertise and passion. So with me today, I have Rhett Asher with Alto. Rhett, can you just introduce yourself to our audience, please?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Kathy. And by the way, I got to tell you, I'm jealous of your hair. Rhett Asher, Senior Vice President of Partnership Development with Alto. Been here just under a year. Actually, March will be a year for me. And really, my background has been retail. I grew up in retail operations for the first, I guess, third of my career. Second, third of my career was working with fine people like you at the trade associations and bringing different companies and people together to share best practices, work on research projects and things like that. And really where I made a wealth of the friends that I have now. And then this kind of third half of the career, I've been with a couple of really great service or solution providers. And absolutely love it here at Alto. Great people, great. What we're doing is awesome. And yeah, just having a blast.
That's awesome. I'm thrilled to have you with us here today. So Rhett and I are going to chat about building a professional network, not only the importance of it, how to go about it, and just almost lessons learned. You know, Rhett, as I was prepping for this, I'm sure you did the same. I just sort of was like I know how I build a professional network. You know how you do it, but I just Googled it, like, what do they say? Building a professional network. And there's some good stuff out there. But what you and I really want to chat about is what has worked for you. I feel that it's almost like I think some people are natural at it. And so we can chat about those things, but then we also want to chat about the things where maybe it's not natural for somebody to reach out. What's the best way? What are best practices, et cetera. And then also, the differences between, I don't want to say a normal professional network and an asset protection professional network, but it is a little different, right? Because we have, in my opinion, we have a broader reach. So let me just start with the question of where do you think the best place to begin is building your network?
Well, I think as we talked about a little bit before the podcast was, there are an enormous amount of ways you can build your network today, especially through all the great technology. But when we were starting out, it was DOS computers and, all that crazy stuff. So you really just kind of had to do it or not. And I really think the best way to start is to be present. A 10 to 10 to 10, right? Just take every opportunity you can to get in front of different types of people. And listen, for people like us that are in the industry of going to conferences and going to industry meetings and stuff like that, it's, you get thrown into these situations. There might be people that are up and coming in this industry that don't get to go to the relos or NRFs or FMIs of the world, but could go to some small networking regional meetings. There's all kinds of those Toastmaster type things and various ways to do it. But I would just say what I've never done is I've never to miss an opportunity to attend something. And that could be as simple as your spouse saying, hey, let's go to this family reunion, or let's go to this thing at my work or whatever. And it's super easy to go, I don't feel like going to that, I'm tired, or I'm this, or I'm that. And I have tried every time somebody's invited me somewhere, whether it's been personally or professionally, to just go, because you never know who you're going to run into. You never know what you're going to hear. And frankly, I've met some of the most interesting people at events or places that I truly just had no idea or no desire to go to.
That's interesting. I think the other thing that does is, especially if it's not your natural state to, make small talk and meet people, it also gives you practice, right? So not only you meeting interesting people, and you just don't know who knows who, right?
Exactly.
and then you just start branching out. The other thing is if you're not in, if the listeners are not in a position where they do go to some of the larger conferences, to your point, there's also a lot of small, just even like local business meetings. And then also like, I know like As Is has local chapters, right? So, right, find out where your local chapters are, where those local meetings are happening, and just go and be present.
Yeah, go to an Orca meeting, go to a, what is it, Better Business Bureau meeting. I mean, all the little capitas and cities and municipalities have business meetings, and just go. You're not going to meet anybody sitting in your house or in an office all day. I just truly believe you got to force yourself to get out there and meet people. But, Kathy, to your original question, there are a ton of other ways today, right? There is LinkedIn, connecting with people, reaching out through LinkedIn. There is Facebook, and there's Instagram, and all the various social networks that you can find people to connect with. There are podcasts like this that you can listen to. But yeah, I would just say you have to work at it. You can't assume relationships are going to come to you. You have to be proactive in trying to build those.
Right. And I think the other thing is, if you do, if you attend a meeting even with somebody, you can ask them, please introduce me to so-and-so, or right, like that's okay. It's perfectly acceptable. And your point about LinkedIn is LinkedIn is a phenomenal tool, but it's not just a matter of, connecting to people. It's reaching out to them, sending them a private message, sending them, right, like actually doing that communication back and forth. The one thing you and I chatted about before we started was the importance of being not just genuine, but genuinely yourself.
Yeah. And listen, I agree. Frankly, I don't know how to be any other way.
Too stressful.
Yeah, I guess I've always said people do business with people they know, love, and trust. And there's two caveats in there, right? It's people do business with. I don't necessarily mean buying or selling transactional business with, but what I do mean is leveraging of relationships, introducing other people. Like there's a whole wealth of doing business, right? It's that whole interaction that you have with people. And so again, people do that type of business with people they know, love, and trust. And I'll go to the second caveat, is that word love. I don't want people to take that literally, but love, like, respect, appreciate, whatever word you want to put in there. I just think that whole genuine honesty, integrity, being a good person, calling people back, making the relationship two ways. Somebody introduces you to someone, then somebody asks you, you should do the same thing. And I think it's one of the things we also talked about, and I know one of your questions was about what are the pitfalls, right, in that relationship. And I think the biggest pitfall is anytime you go into a relationship wanting to get something out of it, that whole quid pro quo or tit for tat or whatever, I think you are literally shooting the relationship in the foot from the beginning. I try never to go into any relationship assuming or wanting something out of it. I truly enjoy just that interaction with people. And if it comes to something, which a lot of times it just does naturally, great. If it doesn't, then you've lost nothing, right? But you've potentially impacted somebody else. And I think that's so important.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. And I think the other thing that a network, again, we're not necessarily doing it to get something out of it, but at the end of the day, it can be a great support system, right? That's one of the intentions, right? Is having a great support system, bouncing a question off of somebody that maybe has a different background, right? Has a different, either has different experiences or from a different geographic area, different outlook than you have. And it's just interesting to have a group of people to bounce ideas off of, or, gee, I've never experienced this before. Have you experienced this? Like you're building the network of connections and also support.
Yeah. So, and listen, I think 50% of those relationships are going to pay some sort of dividend, at some point during the relationship. And that when it happens, it's amazing. It feels great. And you're like, man, I'm super glad I went into this with not wanting anything, because when you get something from that, it just makes it's almost like when your parents used to give you an allowance and then they'd say, no, no more allowance, go earn your own money. When I bought stuff as a kid with my allowance, it was like, I wouldn't care if I dropped it in the ground or I lost it, no big deal. I paid for it with my own money, man, I'm coveting the crap out of that. So
That's right.
it's that kind of thing, right? When you
Yeah, makes it more valuable. Absolutely.
yeah,
More valuable.
absolutely.
Yeah. So from an asset protection, loss prevention industry, right? We're not just building a network of, other professional individuals, but hopefully building a network of, law enforcement agencies, right? Various levels, and other government agencies. What feedback or suggestions do you have for the listeners? Let's say I'm a local loss prevention manager, regional director, right? What am I doing to reach out?
Well, and I think that's super important. It's part of that whole importance of relationship building is not necessarily just the people you're comfortable with or that are like you, right? We always talk about, if you surround yourself with people just like you, what's the point? You want to surround yourself with people that are not like you and that can add value from an educational or relationship way, or just a learning, right? So law enforcement, other retailers, other industries, government agencies, like you said, local chapter groups, whatever it is. I think our industry relies on such a breadth of relationships from different areas and different industries. I mean, you could get into supply chain and logistics. We all touch some way, shape, or form there. A lot of us work with government or law enforcement. I mean, there are so many different types of people we touch every day. And I just think it's super important to make sure that your network is not just that small circle of people that are just like you. I don't want to be cliche in using the word diversity, but that word diversity is such a huge word because it doesn't just mean race or culture or gender. It means experiences and ways of thinking and different job skills. And like it's huge. And I just think that any chance you get to meet somebody that's not like you is even sometimes probably even more beneficial than meeting somebody just like you.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Another idea that I just thought of is probably attending charity events, right?
That's
Charity events would
absolutely.
be, I mean, you're talking a lot of various people attending those, and they're, and it can be a charity that you're passionate about, right? And attending, and also volunteer work. There's just so many ways to like meet people and build that professional network.
And that's the charity thing. That's a great epiphany just from this conversation. I know our industry has really done a great job over the years, whether it's through the big associations or it's our companies that we work for, or just to your point, passions of people. We do a pretty good job of sharing the different nonprofits and charity organizations that are special to us. I did a podcast or a webinar with LP Magazine not long ago. And one of the things they asked about was a charity, and something that most people outside maybe my super inner circle don't know is that my mom committed suicide when I was young. And so I've always had a passion for those suicide prevention type charities or hotlines or education groups. I just think those are so important. And again, I've met some incredible people out of that tragedy and into getting involved in groups like that. So I go back to the first thing I said. It's meet and everyone you can and go everywhere you can, get involved, because the more you do, the better your life is, the better fulfilled you are, you're happier, and you can look on Google about all the things that, being happy and having relationships reduces illness and reduces depression and da, 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 da. But I think at the end of the day, it just makes you happy.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would, and you and I were joking beforehand. Shockingly enough, for the listeners, Rhett is not an introvert, and I am. And we were talking about, although both, I think, very good at building relationships and reaching out and putting yourself out there. It's more about the way we recover. So whether somebody says, well, I'm an introvert, that's probably how somebody recovers and shouldn't impact them being able to reach out. Again, it's a skill set, and the more we practice it, I think the better the better off we are.
Yeah, I told you earlier the funny story about I have a 246 step walk to work now in my new office and home here in Miami, and I walk literally across the street around this little alley to my building, and I probably run into half a dozen, maybe a dozen people walking around too, and I say hello to everybody. And everybody looks at me like I've got three heads. Like, who's this guy walking around with this huge smile on his face, saying hi to everybody? But it's just what I do. I don't know. But anyway,
Yeah.
hey, maybe one day one of those relationships will turn into something super awesome.
Yeah. And someday, maybe when you're not feeling extremely cheery and you don't say hello, somebody's going to say hello back, and that's going to make your day, right?
Hey, dude, what's wrong with you?
Yeah. What happened? What happened here? So Rhett, with your position at Alto, and they do some phenomenal things. So what events do you and Alto have coming up that you're going to be with folks from the industry and present? Give the listeners an idea of what do you have upcoming on your agenda?
So we've got a variety of things. I mean, part of it's I'm lucky enough to head our marketing division, so I get to pick a lot of that, and choose a lot of those. But what Alto does is super special in that we do have to network with all those levels. And so we're going to be at the typical NRF, RELA, FMI, big shows, ASIS, things like that. But then we're also going to be at kind of those regional shows like the various Orcas, GROC, those events that are more regionally focused. So we get to really build relationships and tell the story at that level. And then we do a lot of, law enforcement events, chief of police events, law events, things like that, where we get access to have conversations with people there. So I would say watch our website, watch our LinkedIn post, just like with you guys. We post everything everywhere we're going to be, but we're going to meet as many people as we can because it's just what I like to do. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. So as we start wrapping things up here, one of the things, from a professional standpoint, I would say I think the majority of us are in this constant state of improvement and assessment, right? So I always enjoy the stop, start, and continue. So what is one thing I'm going to start doing professionally, stop doing professionally, and then continue doing to just to continue to improve. So if we take that, we already said our industry is all about relationships, right? If we take that and we spin it from to a personal perspective for you, can you give us give me and the listeners a stop, start, and continue for you personally?
Wow, I think I think the most important thing about what you just asked is how do we continue to assess what we're doing and are we in the right place? And so if we're talking start, I want to start enjoying the Miami lifestyle where there's no winter and snow. But I want to start. I think since I've been on this solution provider side, I have not done one of the key things in building relationships, which is don't forget to reconnect with everybody, and you get busy all the time. So I'm going to start or restart from a professional level, making sure that I do not lose touch with all those people that I enjoy being around. And I'm not just talking about at conferences, but I mean picking up the phone and taking 10, 15, 20 minutes to talk to people. And then personally, I think I'm going to start working out again. I have gotten crazy busy, and like a lot of us through COVID, we just kind of lost control of, well, I'm not going to say a lot of us. I did not probably eat best. I was in a basement in Chicago in the winter and it's cold, and, you just eat comfort food. So I think I'm going to start reaching out more and start working out more from a start standpoint. On a stop, I think I'm going to stop letting myself or stop talking myself out of things that I know are right. And by that, I mean, I get in my head sometimes about, oh, well, if I do this or I do that, will it lead to 10 other things that I don't want or I do want? I tend to overthink sometimes. And so I'm going to stop overthinking and just doing. And that's something that's always done really well for me in the past. And I think some points of our lives, we get in ruts about things that change us. And I'm going to stop doing that. And, personally, I'm going to stop eating so much and work out more. And then you notice I didn't say stop drinking beer, because everybody that listens to this knows I'm a beer guy, and that's not going to happen.
And we really desire for this to be a factual conversation. So
I'm going to continue enjoying craft beer with my buddies in the industry and my friends and family, because that's something I super enjoy. And then professionally, I think I'm going to continue to put myself out there in ways like this. While I am an extrovert, I do get nervous speaking, and just like everybody else, putting yourselves outside of your comfort zone. And I'm going to continue to challenge myself to be the best I can be, and do all those things that are scary and non-comfortable.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing. I know that sometimes it's not always easy, so I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
So really appreciate your time today. Both for the listeners, both Rhett and I, reach out to us on LinkedIn, but send us a note. Let's connect. Let's build networks. And at the end of the day, we're here to support one another, not just professionally, but also personally. So thank you, listeners. Thank you, Rhett. Really appreciated the time, and I will chat with you soon. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Kathy. Have a great day.